The gym bag wasn't supposed to be my business. Rebecca always said modern marriage needed boundaries, personal space, individual growth within partnership. I respected that philosophy. Until 3:30 Tuesday morning, when insomnia drove me downstairs searching for aspirin, and her workout bag sat open on the kitchen counter like a confession waiting to happen. 3 phones. Burner phones. Hidden in the side pocket beneath her yoga mat and protein powder. Color-coded cases, blue, red, green, each containing contacts organized with the precision Rebecca brought to everything in her advertising career. Appointments, she called them, meetings, personal training sessions. My name is Thomas Waverly. I own Waverly Auto Repair on the south side of town, fixing transmissions and brake systems for 23 years. Married to Rebecca for 18 of those years. Father to Sophie, our 16-year-old daughter who inherited her mother's organizational skills and my stubborn streak. We lived in a modest colonial on Maple Street, where Rebecca's career success gradually overshadowed my blue-collar income, and her need for space grew proportionally to her salary. The blue phone contained one contact, David. The red phone, Jake. The green phone, Stephen. 2 additional numbers were saved across the devices under initials only. 5 men total, all with scheduled appointment times spanning 18 months of careful coordination. I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by evidence of systematic deception, and felt something shift inside my chest. Not surprise, exactly. Rebecca's late nights, weekend conferences, and sudden interest in fitness had painted a picture I'd chosen not to examine. The phones simply developed the photograph. Modern marriage needs space, she'd explained 6 months ago during one of our increasingly rare dinner conversations. Space for personal growth, self-discovery, independence within partnership. She'd read articles, attended seminars, consulted with her best friend Cassandra about evolving relationship dynamics. I'd nodded, agreed, trusted her expertise in matters requiring more sophistication than carburetor repair. The first number I dialed was David. Hello? A sleepy male voice, confused by the late hour. Hi, David. This is Thomas Waverly, Rebecca's husband. I think we should meet. Silence stretched long enough for me to count heartbeats. I don't know what you're talking about. Tuesday afternoons, blue phone, appointment scheduling. Ring any bells? The line disconnected. I marked David as a coward and moved to the red phone. Jake answered on the first ring, alert despite the hour. Rebecca? What's wrong? Not Rebecca. This is Thomas, her husband. I found your number in her private phone collection. Quite impressive organization system she's got running. Listen, man, I don't know what kind of game this is. No game. Just a husband who discovered his wife's appointment calendar extends beyond business meetings. You're scheduled for Thursday evenings, correct? How long has this arrangement been going on? Jake's breathing changed. 2 years. But she said you knew. She said you had an understanding. We do now. Tell me, Jake, are you married? That's none of your business. Actually, it's exactly my business. See, Rebecca's space apparently includes 5 different men, and I'm wondering how many wives need to know about their husband's understanding with my wife. The phone went quiet again. Then, what do you want? A conversation, all of us together. I think Rebecca's appointment system would benefit from group discussion. I hung up before he could respond and moved to Stephen. Stephen proved more cooperative, possibly because he answered with genuine concern in his voice. Rebecca, are you okay? It's really late. Stephen, this is Thomas Waverly, Rebecca's husband. We need to talk. Oh, God. The words came out like air leaving a punctured tire. Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God. Relax, Stephen. I'm not calling to threaten anyone. I'm calling to organize a meeting. Rebecca values organization. I thought we should honor that by bringing all her appointments together for a group consultation. She said you were separated. She said you were getting divorced. Interesting. When did she tell you that? 6 months ago when we began meeting. Meeting. That's a nice way to put it. Are you married, Stephen? Engaged. Was engaged. We broke up last month, but we're trying to work things out. What's her name? Linda. Why? Just curious about the scope of Rebecca's impact on other people's relationships. I'll be in touch, Stephen. Pleasant dreams. The remaining two numbers yielded similar conversations. Both men shocked to learn about each other, both operating under different stories Rebecca had provided about our marriage status, both suddenly very interested in ending their appointments with my wife. By dawn, I had 5 phone numbers, 5 names, and enough information to understand the full architecture of Rebecca's space. 2 married men, 1 engaged, 2 single, but all believing they held exclusive positions in her carefully compartmentalized world. Rebecca came downstairs at 7:15, dressed for another day at Morrison & Associates, her advertising agency downtown. She moved through our kitchen with practiced efficiency, assembling coffee and reviewing her phone messages, completely unaware that her gym bag had been reorganized during the night. "Morning," she said, without looking up from her phone. "Late night at the shop?" "Couldn't sleep. Found some interesting reading material." She glanced at me then, registering something different in my tone. "Everything okay?" "Define okay. If okay means discovering your wife operates a color-coded appointment system with 5 different men, then yes, everything's perfectly okay." Rebecca's coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. Her eyes moved to the gym bag, then to the 3 phones arranged neatly on the kitchen counter, then back to my face. "Thomas, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're excellent at explanations. Modern marriage needing space, personal growth, independence within partnership. Very compelling theories. I particularly enjoyed your explanation to Stephen about our impending divorce. Creative storytelling. It's not what you think." "Really? Because I think you've been managing 5 different relationships while married to me, using burner phones to coordinate schedules, and telling each man whatever story keeps him comfortable with the arrangement. Did I miss anything?" Rebecca set down her coffee and straightened her shoulders, shifting into the confident posture she used during client presentations. "Adult relationships are complex, Thomas. What we have isn't working, we both know that. I've been exploring alternatives that might help us both grow." Alternatives, plural, 5 of them, apparently. "You're simplifying a complicated situation." "Actually, I'm complicating a simple situation. You're cheating. With 5 men, systematically, for 18 months, while married to me, while living in our house, while raising our daughter. That's not complex adult relationship theory. That's organized deception." "I never meant to hurt you." "Hurt me?" "Rebecca, I'm impressed. Your organizational skills are remarkable. Color-coded phones, scheduled appointments, customized stories for each participant. You should write a manual." She stared at me, probably trying to determine whether I was being sarcastic or genuinely complimentary. The answer was both. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we implement some changes to your appointment system. Starting with group consultation. I've already contacted your clients. They're all very interested in meeting each other." "Thomas, no. You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand perfectly. You wanted space. I'm giving you all the space you can handle." Rebecca left for work without another word, but her phone buzzed constantly during breakfast. Sophie noticed the tension while grabbing cereal before school. "You guys fighting again?" she asked, not looking up from her phone. "Your mother and I are having a philosophical discussion about modern marriage." "Gross. Keep it to yourselves." After Sophie left, I drove to my shop and tried to focus on the day's repairs. Eddie Martinez, my lead mechanic and closest friend, sensed something different immediately. "You look like someone who found treasure and poison in the same box," he said, wiping grease from his hands with a red shop rag. "That's surprisingly accurate." Woman trouble. Woman organization. Rebecca's been running a more complex operation than I realized. Eddie had worked for me for 8 years, ever since his release from county lockup for aggravated assault charges that stemmed from catching his own wife with another man. He understood relationship complications from personal experience. What kind of operation? I told him about the phones, the appointments, the systematic deception spanning 18 months. Eddie listened without interruption, occasionally nodding like a mechanic diagnosing engine problems. 5 guys, he said when I finished. That's ambitious. That's organized. What's your plan? Full disclosure. Everyone gets to know everyone. Let Rebecca's appointment system collapse under the weight of truth. Might get messy. Messy's fine. Messy's honest. The first call came at 10:30. David, the coward from the blue phone, had apparently found his courage. We need to talk, he said without preamble. I'm listening. Not over the phone, in person. Fine, my shop. Waverly Auto Repair on South Street, 1 hour. I'll be there. David arrived precisely on time, driving a silver BMW that needed washing. He was younger than me by maybe 10 years, wearing an expensive suit that looked out of place in my garage. Lawyer, probably, or financial consultant, the kind of man Rebecca met through her advertising work. Thomas Waverly? He asked, extending his hand. That's me. You must be David from the blue phone. He winced at the reference, but shook my hand firmly. We need to discuss this situation rationally. I agree. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? It's not that simple. Sure it is. You've been having an affair with Rebecca. She's been having affairs with 4 other men. None of you knew about the others. Simple. She told me you were separated. She told Stephen we were getting divorced. She probably told Jake we had an open marriage and the other 2 that I was deceased. Rebecca customizes her stories for maximum comfort. David ran his hand through his hair, disturbing its careful styling. This is a disaster. For who? For everyone involved. I'm married. My wife doesn't know about Rebecca. If this comes out, your wife will learn that her husband has been cheating on her. Seems like information she deserves. You don't understand. My wife is pregnant. This would destroy her. Should have considered that before you started making appointments with my wife. David's composure cracked slightly. What do you want? Money? I can pay you to keep this quiet. I don't want money, David. I want truth. Your wife deserves to know who she's married to. Rebecca's other appointments deserve to know they're not special. Everyone gets full disclosure. That's vindictive. That's honest. Rebecca wanted space to explore adult relationships. I'm helping her explore the consequences. David left without another word, but I could see him making phone calls from his BMW before driving away. Probably warning Rebecca about our conversation, possibly calling his lawyer, definitely panicking. Jake arrived 2 hours later, driving a pickup truck with construction company logos on the sides. Blue collar like me, but younger and more muscular, the kind of man who probably met Rebecca at her new gym. You're Thomas, he said. Statement, not question. I am. You're Jake from the red phone. This is screwed up, man. Which part? The cheating or the discovery? All of it. Rebecca said you knew. She said you were cool with it. Rebecca says a lot of things. Did she mention the other 4 men she's been seeing? Jake's face changed. Other men? David, Stephen, and 2 more. Your appointment number 2 in a 5-man rotation. How does that make you feel? Like an idiot. That's honest. Are you married? Yeah, 10 years. 2 kids. Does your wife know about your Thursday evening appointments? Hell no. She will. Jake stepped closer, trying to use his size advantage for intimidation. You threatening me? I'm informing you. Your wife deserves the truth. So do Rebecca's other appointments. So does my daughter. Everyone gets full disclosure. My wife finds out. My marriage is over. Your marriage is already over. You ended it when you started cheating. I'm just making the ending official. Jake left angrier than David, but equally powerless. 2 down, 3 to go. Stephen proved the most pathetic of Rebecca's appointments. He arrived driving a Honda Civic with a faded college parking sticker, looking like someone who'd been crying recently. I broke up with Linda because of Rebecca, he said without introduction. She convinced me that what we had was special, that she was leaving you, that we had a future together. Rebecca's very convincing. It's part of her professional skill set. I threw away a 3-year relationship for someone who's been lying to me. 5-man rotation tends to complicate exclusive relationship claims. I feel sick. You should. You helped destroy my marriage and your own relationship for someone who scheduled you like a dental appointment. Stephen started crying then, standing in my garage in front of Eddie and 2 customers, sobbing like a teenager. I felt no sympathy. He'd made choices. Now he got consequences. What can I do? He asked between sobs. Nothing. The situation is beyond your control now. Go home, Stephen. Call Linda. Apologize. Hope she's more forgiving than I am. By closing time, I'd spoken with 4 of Rebecca's 5 appointments. The last 2 numbers had gone to voicemail, but I left detailed messages explaining the situation and inviting them to contact me for further discussion. Rebecca's carefully organized system was beginning to collapse under scrutiny. Her appointments were panicking, calling each other, probably calling her. The color-coded phones were buzzing constantly with incoming damage control attempts. I drove home feeling satisfied for the first time in months. Rebecca wanted space for personal growth and self-discovery. She was about to discover exactly who she really was when all her lies stopped working simultaneously. Rebecca's car was already in the driveway when I got home, which was unusual for a Tuesday. She typically worked late on weekdays, attending client meetings or networking events that I now understood might have been appointments with her color-coded phone collection. I found her in the kitchen, pacing while talking rapidly into her regular phone. She ended the call when I entered. "We need to talk," she said. "I agree. How was your day?" "Mine was fascinating. Met 3 of your appointments face to face. David's worried about his pregnant wife. Jake's concerned about his 10-year marriage. Stephen's devastated about losing Linda. Quite a range of emotional responses to your organizational system." "Thomas, stop. This isn't a game." "You're right. Games have rules that everyone understands. Your system operated on selective information distribution, much more sophisticated." Rebecca sat at our kitchen table, the same table where I'd discovered her phones 12 hours earlier. "I never meant for it to happen this way." "How did you mean for it to happen?" "I meant to tell you, eventually, when the time was right." "When would that have been? After appointment number 6, 10? When exactly does systematic deception reach its natural conclusion?" "It wasn't deception. It was exploration." "Exploration requires maps, Rebecca. You gave everyone different maps. David thought you were separated from me. Stephen thought we were divorcing. Jake thought I approved of your Thursday meetings. That's not exploration. That's fraud. Adult relationships are complicated. This one isn't. You've been cheating on me with 5 men while maintaining our marriage as cover for respectability. Simple." Rebecca's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then looked back at me. "They're all calling. David, Jake, Stephen. They're panicking. Panic seems appropriate. Their comfortable lies just became uncomfortable truths." "What did you tell them?" "Everything. About each other, about the phones, about the appointment system. Full disclosure." "Thomas, you don't understand what you've done. I've given everyone the same information you've been carefully hiding. Now, they can make informed decisions about their relationships." "You've destroyed everything." "I've revealed everything. There's a difference." Sophie came home during our discussion, dropping her backpack by the door and heading straight for the refrigerator. She paused when she noticed the tension. "Still fighting?" she asked. "Still discussing," I replied. "Whatever. I'm going to Melissa's house for dinner. Her parents actually like each other." Sophie left before either of us could respond. Rebecca watched our daughter go, then turned back to me. "This affects Sophie too," she said. "Your choices affected Sophie. My response is just making the effects visible. She doesn't need to know about this." "She's 16, Rebecca. She's not stupid. She's already noticed that our marriage has problems. At least now those problems have explanations." Rebecca's phone buzzed again. This time she answered. David, I can't talk right now. No, I don't know what he's planning. Yes, I understand you're concerned about your wife. She ended the call and looked at me. David wants to know if you're going to contact his wife. What do you think? Thomas, please. His wife is pregnant. This could cause serious problems. David should have considered that before he started making appointments with you. You're being vindictive. I'm being thorough. Everyone who's been affected by your exploration deserves to know the truth. What about forgiveness? What about working through problems together? What about honesty? What about respecting your marriage vows? Rebecca stood up and started pacing again. I was trying to save our marriage. By sleeping with 5 other men? By finding out what I needed, what was missing, what might make us work better together. Did you discover what you needed? I discovered that I'm not sure I want to be married anymore. Perfect. That makes 2 of us. The words hung in the kitchen like smoke. Rebecca stopped pacing and stared at me. You want a divorce? I want honesty. If that requires divorce, then yes. We could try counseling. We could try individual therapy. You clearly need help understanding the difference between exploration and betrayal. Rebecca's phone rang again. Jake this time, based on her expression. I have to take this, she said. Take it upstairs. I'm done listening to damage control conversations. She left, and I sat alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of 18 years of marriage. The house felt different now, like a stage set after the play had ended. All the props remained, but the story was over. Eddie called while I was heating leftover pizza. How'd it go with the appointments? He asked. 3 down, 2 to go. Rebecca's in crisis management mode. What's next? Full transparency. Everyone gets to know everything. You sure about this path, Thomas? Once you start this kind of war, it's hard to stop. I'm not starting a war, Eddie. I'm ending a lie. Same thing sometimes. After Eddie hung up, I sat in my kitchen and planned the next phase of Rebecca's education in consequences. She wanted space for exploration. I was going to give her more space than she'd ever imagined possible. Wednesday morning brought rain and the sound of Rebecca making frantic phone calls from our bedroom. I could hear her voice through the walls, alternating between apologetic and defensive as she tried to manage the collapse of her appointment system. I left early for the shop, stopping first at the office supply store to purchase a large manila envelope and printing services. The evidence needed proper organization before distribution. The remaining 2 appointments had returned my calls. Both expressed shock at learning about the other men. Both claimed Rebecca had told them different stories about our marriage status, and both agreed to meet me for individual conversations. Michael arrived at 10, driving a motorcycle and wearing leather jacket that suggested either genuine rebellion or expensive midlife crisis. He was older than the others, maybe my age, with graying hair and confident handshake. Hell of a situation, he said without preamble. That's one way to describe it. Rebecca never mentioned other men. Rebecca specialized in selective information sharing. How long has this been going on? 18 months of appointments. You're number 4 in the rotation. How long have you been seeing her? 8 months. She told me you were abusive, that she was afraid to leave because you threatened her. That stopped me cold. She said I was abusive? Emotionally abusive, controlling. That's why she couldn't be open about seeing other people. Interesting story. Did she show you bruises? Provide examples of threatening behavior? No, but she seemed genuinely scared. Of what? Michael shifted uncomfortably. She said you had a violent temper, that you'd hurt her if you found out about us. Do I seem violent to you? No. You seem angry but controlled. I am angry. My wife has been lying to me for 18 months while maintaining 5 different relationships. Anger seems appropriate. She made it sound like your marriage was over in everything but name. Our marriage is over now, but it was functional until I discovered her appointment system. Michael left, looking confused and betrayed, which seemed fitting. Rebecca's customized stories were unraveling as her appointments compared notes. The fifth appointment proved most interesting. Robert arrived in an expensive SUV, wearing golf attire and radiating the confidence of someone accustomed to getting his way. He was clearly wealthy, probably older than Rebecca by several years, definitely married based on his wedding ring. "This is awkward," he said, settling into the chair beside my desk. "Awkward doesn't begin to cover it. Rebecca's quite a woman. Rebecca's quite an organizer. How many others are there?" "4 besides you, all operating under different assumptions about the nature of their relationship with my wife. I assumed she was divorced. Common assumption. Apparently Rebecca finds it easier to claim divorce than to request it. What's your plan here? Full disclosure. Everyone gets to know everything." Robert nodded thoughtfully. "That could get expensive for some of us." "Expensive how?" "Divorce settlements, custody arrangements, professional reputations. This kind of revelation tends to cascade through multiple areas of life. Should have considered that before making appointments with a married woman. She said she was divorced. She says a lot of things. The question is whether you bothered to verify any of them." Robert leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone more volatile. Rebecca described you as unstable." "Another customized story. What exactly did she tell you about me?" "That you were emotionally unstable after losing your business. That she was supporting you financially while you drank too much and refused to work." "My business is fine. I don't drink much. I work 6 days a week. Rebecca's been lying to you about everything." "Apparently so." Robert left without threats or tears, just quiet acknowledgement that his comfortable arrangement had become complicated. I respected his composure while despising his choices. By noon, I had contacted all 5 appointments and gathered enough information to understand the full scope of Rebecca's deception. Each man had received different stories about our marriage, my character, and her availability. The systematic lying was more extensive than I'd initially realized. The manila envelope contained printed copies of text messages from all 3 phones, appointment schedules spanning 18 months, and contact information for each man's wife or partner. Rebecca's organizational skills had created perfect documentation of her own betrayal. I drove to Morrison and Associates, Rebecca's advertising agency downtown. The building was modern glass and steel, designed to project success and sophistication. Rebecca's office was on the 4th floor, overlooking the city center. "I'm here to see Rebecca Waverly," I told the receptionist. "Do you have an appointment?" "I'm her husband. This is personal." The receptionist looked uncomfortable but called Rebecca's extension. After a brief conversation, she directed me to the elevators. Rebecca was waiting when the elevator doors opened, her face pale and tense. "Thomas, you can't be here. This is my workplace." "This is where you coordinate your appointments. Seems relevant." "We can't discuss this here. We can discuss it wherever you prefer. Your office, the lobby, the parking lot. Your choice." She led me to her office, closing the door behind us. The space was impressive. Large windows, expensive furniture, walls covered with advertising awards and client photos. Evidence of professional success built while maintaining 5 separate relationships. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want you to understand the consequences of your choices." I placed the manila envelope on her desk. "What's this?" "Documentation, text messages, appointment schedules, contact information, everything needed for full disclosure." "Thomas, no, please. I've spoken with all 5 men, David, Jake, Stephen, Michael, and Robert. Interesting conversations. Each one believed a different story about our marriage and my character. I was protecting them. You were protecting yourself. They deserved to know the truth about what they were participating in. What happens now?" Now everyone gets the same information. No more customized stories. No more selective disclosure. Complete transparency. You're going to destroy 5 marriages. I'm going to reveal what's already been destroyed. The marriages ended when the cheating began. I'm just making the endings official. Rebecca sat behind her desk, staring at the envelope like it contained explosives. There has to be another way, she said. There was. It was called honesty. You chose deception instead. I never meant to hurt anyone. Intention doesn't matter anymore. Results matter. 5 men, multiple marriages, our daughter, our family, all affected by your choices. Now everyone gets to respond with complete information. I left the envelope on her desk and walked out of her office, past the receptionist, down the elevator, and into the parking lot where Rebecca's carefully constructed world was about to experience complete system failure. Thursday brought the first wave of consequences. David called it.
In my house! You bastard!
Relax, man. It's just business.
Please, don't shoot!
Get off!
You won't do it. You don't have the guts.
Don't! Please don't shoot him! Please! I'm begging you! Don't do this! No! Please, no!
At 7 a.m, his voice tight with panic. My wife knows, he said without preamble. How did she find out? Someone sent her copies of text messages between me and Rebecca, detailed messages, with dates and times. Interesting. Any idea who might have done that? It was you. Don't pretend otherwise. I haven't contacted your wife yet, David, but I'm glad someone did. She deserved to know. My marriage is over. She's filing for divorce. She's taking the kids. Consequences have a way of catching up eventually. This is vindictive revenge. This is delayed honesty. Your wife should have known about your affair from the beginning. David hung up, but the pattern was established. Someone was accelerating the disclosure process, and I had suspicions about who. Jake called an hour later with similar news. His wife had received an anonymous package containing photographs of him entering and leaving a downtown hotel with Rebecca, along with copies of their appointment scheduling texts. 10 years of marriage gone, he said. 2 kids who won't understand why Daddy doesn't live with them anymore. Maybe you should have considered that before you started making appointments with my wife. You're destroying families. I'm revealing what was already destroyed. Your family ended when you started cheating. The only question was when your wife would find out. Stephen called during lunch break, sobbing again. Linda had received similar evidence and ended their relationship permanently. Michael's wife had thrown him out of their house. Robert's wife was consulting divorce attorneys. 5 relationships collapsing simultaneously, all connected to Rebecca's appointment system. The cascade was accelerating beyond my original timeline. I called Eddie during the afternoon break. Someone's helping distribute information faster than I planned, I told him. Good help or bad help? Unknown. The evidence is accurate, but the timing suggests someone else has access to Rebecca's phone records. Maybe one of her appointments is sharing information. Maybe. Or maybe Rebecca has other secrets I haven't discovered yet. The answer came at closing time when Cassandra Drake walked into my shop. Rebecca's best friend and colleague at Morrison & Associates, tall and elegant with the kind of polished appearance that suggested expensive maintenance. I'd met her at company parties and social events, but we'd never had extended conversations. Thomas, she said, extending her manicured hand. We need to talk. About what? About Rebecca's situation. About the information being distributed to various wives and partners, about managing this crisis before it gets worse. I'm listening. Rebecca made mistakes, serious mistakes, but destroying 5 marriages isn't the answer. I'm not destroying anything. I'm revealing what Rebecca already destroyed. You're being vindictive. I'm being honest. There's a difference. Cassandra studied me carefully. What do you want? Money? A better divorce settlement? Public apology? I want truth. Everyone affected by Rebecca's choices deserves to know what really happened. Even if it destroys innocent families? The families were destroyed when the cheating began. The wives just didn't know it yet. Cassandra's expression shifted subtly. You're not going to stop, are you? Not until everyone has complete information. That's unfortunate. For who? For everyone involved, including you. She left without explanation, but something in her tone suggested I'd misunderstood the scope of the situation. Rebecca's appointment system might be more complex than 5 phones and scheduled meetings. I drove home to find Rebecca waiting in the kitchen with divorce papers. I want to end this before it gets worse, she said. Worse for who? For everyone. The men, their families, our daughter. Our daughter deserves to understand why her parents' marriage ended. She deserves stability and privacy. She deserves honesty. Rebecca placed the papers on the kitchen table. I'll give you everything. The house, custody of Sophie, half my retirement account. All I want is for this to stop. What about accountability? What about mercy? Mercy is for people who confess their mistakes and accept consequences. You're trying to buy silence. I'm trying to minimize damage. The damage was done when you started maintaining 5 separate relationships while married to me. Now everyone gets to see the full extent of that damage. Sophie came home while we were arguing, took one look at the divorce papers, and went upstairs without speaking. Her bedroom door slammed hard enough to shake the house. Look what you're doing to her, Rebecca said. Look what you did to her first. Rebecca left the divorce papers on the table and went upstairs to talk to Sophie. I could hear their voices through the ceiling, Rebecca explaining and Sophie asking sharp questions that suggested our daughter understood more about adult relationships than either of us had realized. I called Eddie to update him on the day's developments. Sounds like someone's playing a deeper game, he said. Cassandra Drake, Rebecca's friend from work. She's involved somehow. Involved how? Unknown. But she knew about the information distribution before I told anyone about it. Maybe she's been helping Rebecca coordinate the appointments. Maybe she's been helping Rebecca with more than appointments. After Eddie hung up, I sat in my kitchen reviewing everything I knew about Rebecca's 18-month exploration of modern marriage. The phones, the appointments, the customized stories, all requiring more coordination than one person could manage alone. Rebecca had help, professional help. And tomorrow, I was going to find out exactly what kind of help she'd been receiving. Friday morning brought rain and the realization that Rebecca's appointment system was more sophisticated than I'd initially understood. The simultaneous information distribution to 5 different wives suggested coordination beyond Rebecca's individual capabilities. I arrived at the shop early and called Morrison and Associates, asking to speak with Cassandra Drake. Ms. Drake is in meetings all morning, the receptionist said. Would you like to leave a message? Tell her Thomas Waverly called. Tell her I have questions about appointment coordination and information management. She'll understand. Cassandra called back within 10 minutes. What do you want, Thomas? I want to understand how 5 wives received identical information packages on the same day. That kind of coordination requires professional assistance. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You've been helping Rebecca manage her appointment system, probably helped her establish the burner phones, coordinate schedules, maybe even provided cover stories when needed. Silence stretched long enough for me to count heartbeats. You're guessing, she said finally. I'm deducing. Rebecca's not organized enough to maintain 5 separate relationships without help. Someone with professional skills has been assisting her. Someone who understands information management and crisis control. Even if that were true, what would you do about it? I'd want to understand the full scope of the network. How many people knew about Rebecca's appointments? Who else was involved? What other secrets are waiting to be discovered? You're playing a dangerous game, Thomas. I'm not playing anything. I'm investigating. There's a difference. Some investigations reveal more than people want to know. I want to know everything. Cassandra hung up, but the conversation confirmed my suspicions. Rebecca's exploration of modern marriage had required professional assistance, and Cassandra Drake had provided it. I spent the morning researching Cassandra's background. LinkedIn profile showed extensive experience in public relations and crisis management. Previous employment at 3 different advertising agencies, always leaving after 2 or 3 years. No obvious personal social media presence, which was unusual for someone in her profession. Eddie found me reviewing printed internet searches during lunch break. "What's the story on Rebecca's friend?" he asked. "Professional crisis manager. Probably helped Rebecca coordinate the appointment system." "Why would she do that?" "Unknown. Maybe friendship. Maybe she's running her own appointment system and they were sharing resources. Or maybe she had other reasons for wanting Rebecca's marriage to end." That possibility hadn't occurred to me. Other reasons like what? Like wanting Rebecca available for different kinds of appointments. Eddie's suggestion opened new lines of investigation. Cassandra's involvement might not have been supportive friendship. It might have been strategic manipulation. I called Stephen, the most cooperative of Rebecca's appointments. "I need to ask you about Cassandra Drake," I said. "Rebecca's friend from work? What about her? Did you ever meet her? Talk to her? Receive any communication from her?" "Once. She called me about 6 months ago. Said she was concerned about Rebecca's emotional state. Asked if I'd noticed any changes in her behavior." "What did you tell her?" "That Rebecca seemed stressed about her marriage. That she was considering divorce, but felt guilty about leaving you." "Did Cassandra suggest anything?" "She said Rebecca needed support from people who understood her situation. That traditional marriage expectations were unrealistic for modern women." "Anything else?" "She gave me advice about being patient with Rebecca's decision-making process. Said she'd been through similar situations and knew how difficult it could be." After Stephen hung up, I called Michael with similar questions. He'd also received a call from Cassandra, also been given advice about supporting Rebecca through her marital difficulties, also been encouraged to be patient with her complicated situation. The pattern was clear. Cassandra hadn't just helped coordinate Rebecca's appointments. She'd actively encouraged the men to continue their relationships despite the complications. She'd been managing the network, not just supporting it. I drove to Morrison and Associates and waited in the parking lot until Cassandra emerged for lunch. She saw me immediately and walked over to my truck. "Following me now?" she asked. "Investigating you. There's a difference." "What did you find?" "I found that you've been actively managing Rebecca's appointment system, calling her partners, giving them advice, encouraging them to continue their relationships despite complications." "So what?" "So I want to know why. What's your interest in maintaining Rebecca's 5-man rotation?" Cassandra leaned against my truck, studying my face. "You really don't understand, do you?" "Understand what?" "Rebecca didn't create this situation alone. She had help, professional help, from someone who understood exactly what she needed and how to get it." "You." "Me." "Why?" "Because Rebecca deserved better than 18 years of marriage to someone who couldn't appreciate her potential. Her potential for what? For exploration, for growth, for discovering what she really wanted instead of settling for what she thought she should want. And what did she really want? Freedom, from marriage, from traditional expectations, from you. The conversation was revealing more than I'd expected. Cassandra hadn't just helped Rebecca cheat. She'd orchestrated Rebecca's dissatisfaction with our marriage. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. 2 years of planning, 18 months of execution. Planning what? Rebecca's exit strategy. The appointment system was designed to help her transition out of marriage gradually without the trauma of sudden divorce. By maintaining 5 separate relationships simultaneously, by exploring her options while maintaining financial security and social respectability. What happens when I expose the full network? Cassandra smiled coldly. You expose yourself to consequences you haven't considered, such as evidence of your own behavior that Rebecca has been documenting for 2 years. What evidence? Evidence that supports claims of emotional abuse, financial control, and threatening behavior toward your wife. False evidence. Evidence that will be believed by family court judges, custody evaluators, and divorce attorneys. I stared at Cassandra, finally understanding the full scope of the operation. Rebecca's appointment system wasn't just about exploration. It was about building a case for divorce that would leave me with nothing. You've been helping her fabricate abuse claims, I said. I've been helping her document patterns of controlling behavior that family courts take very seriously. What kind of documentation? Recorded conversations where you sound angry and threatening, photographs of bruises that could have come from domestic violence, testimony from friends who've witnessed your volatile behavior toward Rebecca. Fabricated testimony. Testimony that will sound convincing to people who don't know you personally. I sat in my truck, processing the implications. Rebecca's exploration of modern marriage had been cover for a sophisticated campaign to destroy me legally and financially. What do you want? I asked. I want you to sign divorce papers that give Rebecca everything she's asking for: house, custody, retirement accounts. In exchange, the abuse documentation disappears. And if I refuse? Then you discover how difficult life becomes for men accused of domestic violence, even when the accusations are false. Cassandra walked away, leaving me in the parking lot with the realization that Rebecca's appointment system had been the least of my problems. The real threat was the network of fabricated evidence designed to destroy my reputation and parental rights. But Cassandra had made one critical mistake. She'd revealed the existence of the documentation before using it, and that gave me time to develop my own response to their professional crisis management. The game was more complex than I'd realized, but I'd been underestimated before, and that had always been my advantage. Saturday morning brought clarity and the understanding that Rebecca and Cassandra had been playing a longer game than I'd realized. The appointment system was tactical. The fabricated abuse documentation was strategic. I spent the morning at the shop, not working on cars, but planning my response to 2 years of professional deception. Eddie arrived early, sensing the shift in situation. What's the new development? He asked. Rebecca's friend Cassandra has been helping her build a domestic abuse case against me. Fake evidence, fabricated testimony, manufactured documentation. How fake? Completely fabricated, but professionally done, designed to destroy me in family court. What's your countermove? Full exposure, everything. The appointment system, the network coordination, the fabricated evidence, all of it becomes public. That's nuclear warfare, Thomas. They went nuclear first. I'm just responding appropriately. I'd spent years underestimated by people who assumed auto mechanics lacked sophistication for complex strategy. Rebecca and Cassandra had made the same mistake. They'd built their campaign assuming I would never discover the full scope or develop an adequate response. They were wrong on both counts. The first step was documentation. I called each of Rebecca's appointments and arranged individual meetings for Saturday afternoon. Not to threaten or intimidate, but to gather testimony about Cassandra's involvement in encouraging their relationships with my wife. David arrived first, still angry, but now more focused on understanding how he'd been manipulated. Cassandra Drake called you 6 months ago? I asked. Yes. Said she was concerned about Rebecca's emotional state. Did she ask specific questions about Rebecca's complaints regarding our marriage? She asked if Rebecca had mentioned feeling trapped or controlled, if she'd expressed fear about your reaction to her seeking independence. What did you tell her? That Rebecca seemed nervous about you finding out about our relationship, that she sometimes seemed scared to go home. Did Cassandra suggest responses or advice? She said Rebecca needed support from people who understood her situation, that men like you often became dangerous when threatened with loss of control. Men like me? Traditional men, blue-collar men, men who expected wives to be subordinate. David's testimony revealed the sophistication of Cassandra's manipulation. She'd planted suggestions that shaped how Rebecca's appointments interpreted her behavior and comments. Jake provided similar information. Cassandra had called him, asked leading questions about Rebecca's emotional state, and provided interpretations of her behavior that supported claims of marital abuse. Stephen, Michael, and Robert had received identical treatment, all contacted by Cassandra, all guided toward interpreting Rebecca's nervousness as fear of domestic violence, all encouraged to provide emotional support that could later be characterized as evidence of Rebecca's desperate need to escape an abusive marriage. By evening, I had 5 consistent testimonies describing Cassandra's systematic manipulation of Rebecca's appointment network to create false evidence of domestic abuse. I called Rebecca at 8 o'clock. "We need to meet," I said. "Thomas, I can't. The situation is too volatile." "The situation is about to become much more volatile. You and Cassandra have been building a domestic abuse case against me using fabricated evidence and manipulated testimony." Silence. I know about the recorded conversations, the staged photographs, the coached witness statements. I know Cassandra has been coordinating the whole operation for 2 years. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. The appointment system was cover for evidence gathering. Every argument we had was recorded. Every time I raised my voice was documented. Every moment of frustration was characterized as threatening behavior." "Thomas, I have testimony from all 5 of your appointments describing how Cassandra coached them to interpret your behavior as fear of domestic violence. I have documentation of her involvement in coordinating your relationship schedule. I have evidence of systematic deception designed to destroy me in family court. What do you want?" "I want to meet. Tomorrow, all 3 of us. You, me, and Cassandra. Time for complete disclosure." Cassandra won't agree to that. Then Cassandra gets to explain her refusal to the family court judge, the State Bar Association, and the local newspaper reporter who's been looking for a story about false domestic violence claims. Rebecca hung up, but I knew she'd deliver the message. Cassandra had built her campaign on the assumption that I would never discover the full scope or develop adequate evidence to counter their strategy. Both assumptions were about to be tested. Sunday morning brought rain and a phone call from Cassandra. "You're making serious accusations," she said. "I'm stating documented facts. You've been helping Rebecca fabricate domestic abuse claims for 2 years. Prove it." "Gladly. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, conference room at Morrison and Associates. You, me, Rebecca, and a court reporter." "I'm not agreeing to any recorded meetings." "Then you're agreeing to have this conversation in family court, where your professional reputation and Rebecca's credibility will be examined under oath. You're bluffing. I'm offering you one opportunity to resolve this privately before it becomes public. Your choice." Cassandra agreed to the meeting, probably calculating that she could manage the situation better in person than in court. She was probably right under normal circumstances, but circumstances were no longer normal. I'd been underestimated for the last time, and tomorrow everyone would discover exactly how much damage an angry auto mechanic could inflict when properly motivated. The appointment system had been Rebecca's mistake. The fabricated abuse evidence was Cassandra's mistake. Tomorrow, they would both learn that mistakes have consequences, and some consequences are more devastating than others. Rebecca wanted space for exploration. Cassandra wanted professional success through client manipulation. Both were about to discover that their carefully constructed plans had one critical flaw. They'd underestimated their target. Monday morning arrived with clear skies and the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything seem possible. I drove to Morrison & Associates carrying a briefcase containing 2 years of counter-investigation, 5 witness statements, and enough documentation to destroy both Rebecca's credibility and Cassandra's professional reputation. The conference room was on the 3rd floor, all glass walls and expensive furniture designed to project success and sophistication. Rebecca sat at one end of the polished table, Cassandra at the other, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. I took the chair directly across from both of them and placed my briefcase on the table. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," I said. "This conversation will determine whether we resolve this situation privately or publicly." "What exactly do you think you can prove?" Cassandra asked. "I can prove that you've been coordinating Rebecca's appointment system for 18 months. I can prove that you coached 5 different men to interpret Rebecca's behavior as evidence of domestic abuse. I can prove that you helped fabricate documentation designed to destroy me in family court." "Those are serious accusations. Those are documented facts." I opened the briefcase and removed 5 signed statements from David, Jake, Stephen, Michael, and Robert, each describing Cassandra's phone calls, coaching sessions, and manipulation of their perceptions regarding Rebecca's marriage. "5 witnesses," I said, placing the statements on the table, "all willing to testify under oath about your involvement in manufacturing false domestic abuse claims." Rebecca leaned forward to read the statements. Her face went pale as she realized the scope of testimony arrayed against their strategy. "This doesn't prove anything," Cassandra said, but her confidence was wavering. "It proves systematic manipulation designed to create false evidence. Combined with phone records showing your calls to each man, timeline documentation of your coordination activities, and testimony about your role in establishing the appointment system, it creates a compelling case for conspiracy to commit fraud." Fraud? Fabricating domestic abuse claims is fraud, Cassandra. Using those claims to gain advantage in divorce proceedings is criminal fraud. Coaching witnesses to provide false testimony is suborning perjury. The room went quiet except for the sound of rain beginning against the windows. "What do you want?" Rebecca asked finally. "I want complete honesty. About the appointment system, about Cassandra's involvement, about the fabricated abuse documentation, about everything. And in exchange?" "In exchange, this stays private. No criminal charges, no bar association complaints, no newspaper stories about false domestic abuse, claims being manufactured by advertising agency crisis managers." Cassandra and Rebecca exchanged glances, probably calculating their options and finding them all unpleasant. "We need time to consider," Cassandra began. "No time," I interrupted. "Decision now. Complete confession or public exposure. Your choice." Rebecca broke first. "It started 2 years ago," she said, not looking at either of us. "I was unhappy in our marriage but afraid of divorce. Afraid of losing financial security, afraid of social judgment, afraid of disrupting Sophie's life. So you decided to cheat instead?" "I decided to explore alternatives. Cassandra suggested that gradual transition might be easier than sudden divorce. Gradual transition through systematic adultery. Through careful exploration of what I really wanted." "And the abuse documentation?" Rebecca glanced at Cassandra, who nodded slightly. "Cassandra said divorce courts favored women who could demonstrate emotional abuse. That documentation of controlling behavior would help me get better custody and financial arrangements." "So you fabricated evidence." "We documented patterns that could be interpreted as controlling behavior. You recorded our private conversations without my knowledge. You staged photographs to suggest physical abuse. You coached witnesses to provide false testimony. We created documentation that supported my emotional experience of our marriage." "Your emotional experience of systematic deception and adultery." Cassandra finally spoke. Rebecca deserved better than 18 years of marriage to someone who couldn't appreciate her potential. Rebecca deserved honesty about the consequences of her choices. Instead, you helped her avoid those consequences while manufacturing new ones for me. You were holding her back. I was being her husband. She was the one who chose deception over communication. I leaned back in my chair and studied both women. Here's what happens next. Rebecca signs divorce papers that split our assets 50-50, gives me primary custody of Sophie, and includes no claims of domestic abuse or emotional cruelty. That's not... Cassandra started. I'm not finished. Cassandra provides written confession of her role in coordinating the appointment system and fabricating abuse documentation. Both confessions become part of the divorce record. Absolutely not, Cassandra said. Then we proceed to family court, where 5 witnesses testify about your manipulation, phone records document your coordination activities, and a jury decides whether your behavior constitutes criminal fraud. You're bluffing. I'm offering you both one final opportunity to resolve this with minimal damage. Rebecca gets her divorce, but loses the fabricated abuse claims. Cassandra keeps her professional license, but accepts responsibility for her actions. And if we refuse? Then you discover how much damage an angry auto mechanic can inflict when he's been systematically underestimated. The room went silent again. Rain continued against the windows, and I could hear traffic sounds from the street below. Rebecca signed the confession first, admitting to the appointment system and acknowledging Cassandra's coordination role. Her signature was shaky, but legible. Cassandra held out longer, probably calculating whether her professional reputation could survive public exposure. Finally, she signed a statement acknowledging her assistance in coordinating Rebecca's relationships and her role in coaching witnesses to provide misleading testimony. This ends it? Rebecca asked. This ends the lies. The consequences are just beginning. I packed the signed confessions into my briefcase and stood up. Rebecca, you'll have divorce papers by Friday. Fair settlement, shared custody, no abuse claims. Cassandra, you might want to consider a different line of work. Crisis management requires credibility. I left them sitting in the conference room, probably trying to calculate the full extent of damage to their reputations and relationships. The elevator ride down felt like emerging from underwater. 2 years of systematic deception had been exposed and documented in less than 2 hours. Outside, the rain had stopped, and sunlight was breaking through the clouds. I drove back to my shop, where Eddie was waiting with coffee and questions. How did it go? Complete victory. Signed confessions, agreed settlement, no fabricated abuse claims. What's next? Next, I rebuild my life without systematic deception as a daily feature. You sure it's over? It's over. Rebecca gets her divorce, but she loses the lies that made it comfortable. Cassandra keeps her job, but she loses the reputation that made her effective. And you? I get my daughter, my shop, my integrity, and my freedom from people who think auto mechanics are too stupid to fight back effectively. Eddie grinned. They learned different. They learned that underestimating people is dangerous, especially when those people have nothing left to lose. I spent the afternoon working on a transmission repair, focusing on the mechanical precision that had always made more sense to me than human relationships. Gears and clutches operated according to logical principles. People operated according to principles I was still learning to understand. But I'd learned enough to recognize deception when I found it, and I'd learned enough to fight back when necessary. Rebecca wanted space for modern marriage exploration. She got divorce and social exposure instead. Cassandra wanted professional success through client manipulation. She got documented confession and damaged reputation instead. Both had underestimated their target and paid appropriate prices for their miscalculation. Freedom, as I'd told Rebecca's appointments, was indeed contagious. And I'd just infected everyone in their network with a particularly virulent strain of truth. The appointment system was over. The fabricated abuse claims were over. The systematic deception was over. My marriage was over too, but that felt like liberation rather than loss. Modern marriage had needed space, according to Rebecca's philosophy. I'd given her all the space she could handle, and then some. The story ended there, in my shop, surrounded by tools and honest work, finally free from people who thought deception was more sophisticated than truth. Some endings are victories. This was one of them.